As a kid, I was raised to be a hunter. That's the way it was when your dad made his living on the trap line. Although he farmed as well, the trap line kept the farm going, my dad's description. Living on a small farm tucked into the bush north of Chelan put me in a perfect place to be a hunter and gatherer. With wild game animals, birds, wild berries, and fish in the river, all within walking distance of our little house, I was in a hunter's paradise every day. I guess it started in Norway when my great-grandparents and grandparents left there and came here. All of them moved to the States originally, and then they went broke in the States. Times were tough, and they had to move. They came up here to where there's big trees and lots of water. Come, Google. I was born on a quarter section north of Chelan. I was born at home. My grandmother was a matron who ran a little hospital there. She was midwife, nurse, doctor, everything. She wasn't a trained doctor, of course, but she did look after sick people. My grandfather was so happy when he had a grandson. He gave me his .22. And of course, he couldn't trust me to handle it safely, so he rendered it incapable of firing, and I would carry it around from when I was big enough, let's say 4 or 5. And my grandfather saw that I was armed at the proper age with a slingshot. He saw to that. And I took it from there and hunted with a slingshot from when I was big enough to shoot it. Progressed to bows and arrows and rifles eventually. I never painted when I was young. We had tempera paints in the country school that I went to, and the big brown pieces of paper. And I suppose I went at it just like any other kid. But what started me painting was going to the Mendel Art Gallery with my kids when they were little, because it was a good place for my wife and I to take our kids on a Sunday and teach them how to be more or less quiet and polite. And so I'd go there and I'd say, I could paint that. I could paint that. And so one Christmas, my wife said, when I was 28, she bought me paints and she said, okay, let's see what you can do. So. And some of the paintings that I saw, it embarrasses me to say that I could do that, because it was A.Y. Jackson or Harris. Yeah, it was so fun once I got into it. I'd paint half the night, night after night. The best time for me is the morning I get up and it's done and I go look at it. I can remember one time I painted this moose for a guy at work and was happy with my painting, and he paid me for it, and then he wanted it framed. He thought that I should frame it. So I said, okay, took it home. It was a cyclops moose, like one of his eyes was practically in the middle of its forehead. So I was glad that I'd got it in my hands again. I fixed that. My hometown of Chelan is on the east central side of the province of Saskatchewan in Canada. The word Chelan is reported to be of Native American origin and is said to mean beautiful water. The irony of this name does not escape me. If you were to ask a Cree what Chelan means, you would get a blank look, because it isn't Cree. It comes from a native language group completely different from Cree, 1,200 miles west of us. Whoever named Chelan didn't think of asking the local natives what they called it. That's the way things happened 100 plus years ago. I wrote hunting stories over the years for a few decades, published a few of them in magazines. So my daughter Dana, it was her idea actually, the book. Yeah. And she'd say, Dad, you should be writing some of your stories down. And I said, I don't have time for that. I'm not going to do that. And then she just kept at me and said, okay, well, I'll do this and I'll do that. So it was good for Dana that she did that for me. When I made this painting, I was thinking of spring. In those days gone by, my sisters and I walked to school on a road just like this, through terrain just like this, with big bear tracks in the mud, snorting deer in the distance, and rabbits teeming in the bush. It was an interesting journey. At the right time of day, one could walk on solid snow-packed pond ice. It would be covered with meltwater. From a little distance, it would look like you were walking on water. So my sisters and I would pretend to be Jesus. One little mistake though, one little miscalculation or foolish step, and you'd be in. That wasn't fun with ice water filled boots or worse, sloshing along, crying all the way home. A friend of mine gave a moose antler to another friend of his, and it was that fellow Keith. He said, "I want you to make a painting on this moose antler." I thought, well, yeah, maybe I'd give that a try. And it turned out. It's called Moose Hunt Along the Red Deer. Well, I wanted to show the moose as it was just stepping into the water. And I show a bow hunter crouched in the brush on the far side. Can't see it in this book. But in the real painting, you can see this bow hunter just ready to let an arrow go. And so I was just trying to show the hunt and how exciting it is. That was a good quartering away shot. Of course, many of the hunting stories are real life hunting stories that I experienced. And then sometimes I can write a story that's more surreal. I have thoughts about dog heaven. So because I've owned a lot of dogs and had companion dogs my whole life, and of course they've come and gone because they always go too soon. Dogs don't last that long. So I was just thinking of dog heaven and what dogs must be like, how they must feel. Come, Google. Google, I think she likes this hunt in a way. She thinks it's pretty weird.
Pretty tame.
Yeah. Well, the painting is a landscape of a trail going through this scrubby, brushy area. And there's a dog sitting sort of in the shadows, right up close, looking out. And that's Jake. And not one of my dogs. Jake is somebody else's dog. And then behind the dog and in the brush are stones and stumps and sticks. If you look at these shapes, you'll see dogs. Yeah, there's 17 or 20 dogs in there. And one of the reasons I painted all of them in there, so I knew the painting was going to a house that had a lot of young kids. They wanted me to make a painting of this dog that had died. And they were happy with it. I've always had a companion dog almost my whole life. Yeah. This one, Google, is my 7th companion dog. Just because of the bears around here, I have to have a dog. And they quickly learned that the bears are usually very afraid of them. I have experienced a lot of bear encounters, especially living here. And when I was a little kid, I was wandering around in the bush because my parents saw no harm coming to their kids. They didn't think it was dangerous. In the 3rd and 4th stories, different dogs and I act together to force an unwanted Bruin out of our domain. So think about it. You are really doing nature a disservice if you kill the bear outright. Teach it to stay away from humans and it might live a quiet life in an ecosystem to reach old age. With wild wisdom, it might teach any offspring to stay away from us as well. Then we all win. My dad, he always mentioned the happy hunting ground. And I don't know why. I never quizzed him about, where that idea came from, but he always said, don't do that or you'll be in the happy hunting ground before you know it, that you're doing something dangerous. Because I was quite young and inexperienced, and he was just making sure I wasn't going to make a mistake working by the blade. He says, what would you do if you drop a block? Well, I'd bend over and pick it up. No, don't bend over, you'll shove your head in there. And then you'll be in the happy hunting ground before you know it. That kind of thing. That's where the idea from the happy hunting ground came from my dad. So then I started thinking, well, what would my happy hunting ground be like? So then I wrote it. In more recent years, having embraced retirement, I've still had good luck in the hunt. Now I hunt with no restrictions on time afield other than those imposed by my advancing years. I find many of my hunts are for practice in stealth, scent control, calling techniques, wind prediction, and determination. My freezer still holds wild game, and if I have excess, it is shared with family and friends.
If you have program ideas that you'd like to see on maxTV Local On Demand, write us at max.local@sasktel.com.